Exclusively on the OysterLink Podcast, the fastest growing hospitality job platform in the US, Chef Hugo Ortega shares his remarkable journey arriving in Houston as a dishwasher to becoming a James Beard Award winning restaurateur. He dives into the realities of the hospitality industry, covering regional Mexican flavors and the logistics of scaling a business. Chef Hugo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Matthew. It's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
To start, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about your career path.
I came here to Houston, to the States in '84, and I navigate myself through the restaurant industry. And then in '89, I was enrolled to attend HEC, and I took culinary education. I went there for 2 years, and in '91, it was a turning point of my career. I got to be the chef in a very small Italian restaurant for a little while. I'm sorry, no, not a chef. I was doing my apprenticeship there in this Italian restaurant, and I did that for a couple of years, I think. And then I came to Backstreet in '93, '94, around that time. And it is when I got the position to be the chef for out below Backstreet Cafe.
Okay. And what happened next?
Oh, okay. So then after that, I learned, and I put in a in paper and to the kitchen what I learned at the school, and I have a wonderful time doing that, learning and feeling important, being the chef for the small cafe. So another turning point it came in 2000. At the time, my boss and her uncle decided to buy this beautiful old building built in the 1930s. And Tracy surprised me by asking, what about you cooking the food of your country? So that was an opportunity, and it was a something wonderful. At the time, it was very complex to understand. The Mexican food is very complex. It's all our hands. It's all making the house. It's very time consuming. So my answer to Tracy was, Tracy, it's a lot of work. And the reason I was saying that is because I have the great opportunity to live with my grandmother in the mountains in Mexico, in the Mixteca region. And so basically over there, you live to eat. Everything is dedicated to take care of the cattle and goats, and take care of the land, and cultivate the land. So the life is very slow, but it's very, I would say, it's a lot of work to it. So anyhow, when Tracy asked me that question, I say, Tracy, that's a lot of work to open a Mexican restaurant and do the food the way I was taught, organic, everything on the house, making the house, and very slowly. So I have a lot of trouble figure it out, how I can speed it out and put all that in a process, to make Mexican food like that is so slow on preparing and every single aspect. So that was a challenging time for me. Eh, But I thought at the moment there was a very unique. I was encountered a very unique time in my life. So sure enough, God, I believe in myself better than ever, and I remember what I learned from my grandmother. Actually, I was talking to her in the times that they were very challenging. I would talk to her and I would ask her some questions. And I tell her, don't leave me, help me. And, her spirit and her knowledge, that she put on me, it's been it's been with me since then. So sure enough, one thing led to another, and we create the menu. And moving forward, it took us probably the second week. We run out of food, and in the second week there was a line at the door at Hugo's, for to come to eat and try this food. This is 22 years ago, and those were incredible times. And by my surprise, sure enough, in the second week we run out of everything in the kitchen. And then I figured it out exactly what I was thinking. The Mexican food is about the love of preparing the food and the time, and everything take time. And for example, if you do cochinita pibil, is 4 hours. And if you do barbacoa, goat barbacoa, is 4 hours. And if you do tamales, it take two or three individuals to do tamales, and then we sell them by the dozen. We don't sell by one; we sell them by the dozen. So anyway, it was a time consuming, but it was well spent.
What inspired you to put your name on the restaurant? Because that brought a lot of recognition.
I think that was something that probably Tracy figured it out.
Okay.
You gotta have my name, and I think that's how it happens. And we you know we were the pioneers in many ways. For example, we make our own chocolate in the house. So we bring the cocoa beans from Oaxaca and we toast it and we make our own chocolate. We make 3, 5, 6 moles. And every mole is, we debate the peppers and so on. So we were the pioneers at the time and at this region to show people, how things are done. We receive a lot of criticism. Some persons say, you don't have the guts to even call it Mexican food. That's the reason you call it Hugo's. And I say, well, it might be true, it might not, but things like that happens.
You mentioned this story happened almost 22 years ago. Do you think that the same pathway still works for people entering the industry today? If someone is working in any restaurant as a dishwasher, do they still have the opportunity to climb the ladder and succeed in this industry despite everything happening in the industry today?
Well, I mean, Matthew, every time, every year, every decade, it has some challenge. The challenge that I faced 22 years ago, I'm sure is not the challenges that somebody that started their own restaurant will face today. But it's just everything in your heart. I think if you believe in yourself and if you believe in who you are and what you want to do, I think everything is possible. It might be different challenges, different times, but I think the possibility is still there for anyone and everyone that want to try, that endeavor.
When people look at you today, when people read about you today, all they can see is the successes, the James Beard Award, and the restaurants. What is the one thing that people don't know about that journey?
Well, I mean, this is funny, but I was homeless, at some point in my life back in the early 80s. And that is a challenge that you can, if I can overcome that, so do everybody else, right? But it was a period of time in my life that I don't have a home where to live, and so that is an extreme challenge, but I overcame and turned myself into the right way. Other than that, I think that there is many challenges, Matthew. I mean, for example, if you get into a restaurant but you don't have parking lot, for example, where people will park, that's a challenge. If you have a restaurant that is way too big for your neighborhood, that's a logistic challenge. I mean, you have to understand where you are and what kind of restaurant you are vision to open. And you always gotta measure those things, right? If it's a restaurant that seat 200 plus people, you're going to need between cooks and dishwashers and prep cooks and butchers and whatever, right? So you have to measure that, what is in you that you wanna uh, achieve. For me, now, you know 40 years later, since I put my first foot on that restaurant at Backstreet, it's been 4 decades. So now I have 5 restaurants, going to be six. We reopen Backstreet in the next few months, and that is a challenge for me, right? To put my DNA in every kitchen and convince every person that what we do is right, and try to teach them, the principles of cooking, and the belief and the concept. So those are the challenge that I have. But this is who I am, and
Yep.
I cannot go back and say I want to have only one restaurant. For that matter, I want to have 100 restaurants if it's possible.
By the way, what you just mentioned, this is so inspiring and will inspire a lot of our audience. Going from being homeless to being the first Mexican born chef to win a James Beard Award. You're a James Beard Award winner. Besides all the other awards and all the other achievements, this is huge. So let me ask you for a piece of advice, what would you say is the simplest roadmap for someone who wants to win the James Beard Award one day?
uh, let me remember that I have something that Tracy gave me. You're gonna work so hard and you're gonna be so dedicated
that they can't deny you.
they cannot deny success. I
Amazing.
think, yeah, I think that's it. I think I say it right.
Yes. Chef, I mean, I have now to ask you, you managed to build the entire restaurant empire with your spouse. So, what advice would you give to someone thinking about going into business with maybe a partner or family member?
That they have to breathe the same air. What I try to say, they have to believe, and they have to be in the same mindset. And now people open a restaurant left and right, but I think it's good to do an apprenticeship. Go to a restaurant. Go there is, you can go to any restaurant. You can go to New York, Barcelona, Mexico City, and do apprenticeship and see what it's like. Get your feet wet first, and see what it's like, and then and travel, and then after that, you have hopefully you have your mind clear to see. I believe we are a bunch of crazy people, Matthew, the ones who are in this industry, and of course, there is some like very bright stars like Danny Myers, for example. They have teaching us so much, or Daniel Boulou, or perhaps the great James Beard. The I assume at some point in his life he thought, man, I just cannot believe what it happened. To be able to out of my house to be able to have cooks, chefs from all over the world. They cooking African cuisine, they cooking Mediterranean cuisine. So I just wonder, and I hope that the great James Beard, have this idea that what he was doing open up this incredible field for so many people. They have come to America since he began his journey and started cooking at his house. I think whatever James Beard is, this is the result of a one moments of brilliance. Include everyone, because we always have something to give, even if we are foreigners. We always have something to offer.
You just mentioned something. You said people are opening restaurants left and right. So let me ask you, at what point should a chef start thinking about opening their own restaurant? And when is it too soon?
I think I think one specific um, one specific thing that you have to work is the location of the restaurant. Now, you asked me about the age of a, open a restaurant. Of course, it will help, when you start very young, because you will have, I would say, the youth. If things go wrong, you can always back a little bit and go forward, which I think that's what we have done as a company a little bit. When times are tough, we backing a little bit, and then we recharge and move forward, and it just work good when you are it helps. Now, the concept is the concept gotta be unique, and I have the privilege to understand my country and Mexico, where it has so much to offer. It has so many regions. So when I opened, for example, Hugo's, I thought, Mexico had 8 regions to offer different types of food, climate, microclimates, anything that you go as an ingredient that you possibly dream about it, Mexico had it. My thought was open Hugo's is going to be regional Mexican cuisine. So I picked the classics for every region and make it work. And some works and didn't, but that was my passion behind that. Then we have the opportunity to open Caracol, and that is a coastal regional cuisine. And for my surprise, when I toured the country from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the Mexican Riviera and South Pacific, and came up all the way to wine country in Mexico, Valle de Guadalupe, I noticed there was a lot of fish, for example. And by my surprise, they in Mexico we season the fish with peppers and herbs and garlic and onions, and we're not afraid of that. We treat that's how we treat the fish. So that was an eye opening for me to learn that. So that's the reason behind opening Caracol. The fish don't have to be seasoned delicate. Some fish take a little bit of punch, a little bit of spice, a little bit of charcoal, a little bit of smoke. So anyway, so when we opened Xochi, when the Xochi opportunity came to the table, I was thinking to do something for my grandmother, because we're from southern Mexico, central Mexico, where we live and breathe chocolate, and we live and breathe peppers and spices, and there's so much tradition on the food. Is just the mega of what is Mexican food. Central Mexico, it is that and more. So I was thinking, I wanna honor Didia. That was my grandmother's name, by putting her mole recipe on the menu, and get inspired by all her cooking, and her making bread in a adobe horno, wood adobe horno, and making chocolate on the metate. Not on the motor stone grinder, and the metate, and teaching me the pure flavor of the cacao. You know, she was grounding cacao, and then she got a little bit and put it in my mouth, and I told her, "Abuelita, I don't like chocolate." And so she cracked a laugh, and she explained to me that the reason was because we are missing the cinnamon and the sugar, which are the three ingredients that put cacao chocolate, right? Cacao, cinnamon, and sugar. But anyway, learning these things, it made me feel part of something very unique, and offer Houstonians something that they have not seen before. Of course, has some insects, like gusano de maguey or chiniquil, chicatana, and make moles out of chicatanas, flying ants, grasshoppers, and deep flavor with a lot of pride, to offer something different and unique. So yes, we've been blessed enough to be able to do that, and we will continue to dig into the Mexican food, Mexican cuisine.
Amazing. Chef, let me wrap up this conversation with one simple question. What does success look like to you today versus 40 years ago? When you first stepped in a restaurant, what does success to you, what is it to you today?
I want to say this for the young upcoming chefs. Success, as you progress, you have to know what it is, because as you growing, success can be very tricky, because you have to split yourself and work more hours and delegate, and be part of things. Success is a thing that come in a very small deals, very small quantities. Um, this is just more the responsibility of not laying down your customers day in and day out and your community. And consequently, that would allow us to have my friends, my coworkers, people that I've been cooking with them for the past 20 years, some of them, many of them. So anyway, success is, to me, it comes in a very small quantities.
Thank you so much. This is very inspiring. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for the opportunity to say a few things, and I wish the best for all the up and
Thank you
coming.
so much. It was an honor talking to you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Have a good day. Have a good weekend ahead.